All right, now that we're going to try to use some other methods that are non-auto, go ahead and close down those images, or if you want to leave Kali, the original, you do need that. So either if you've closed them all, reopen Kali. If not, leave the original Kali JPEG file open. All right, we're going to use the levels command. And the cool thing about Photoshop is that it has all these different tools. And if one doesn't work, there's usually another method or a combination of methods that will work. So we are going to use the levels adjustment, and I'm going to show it to you. We're going to go through a whole walkthrough of it, but the way I'm showing you now is destructive editing, meaning that once we're done with it and we hit save, there is no going back, no changing our minds. And for that reason, it's not. But to understand how the tool itself works, we go through this process, and then I will show you a non-destructive way of using it. So with Kali open, let's come up to the image dropdown at the top and choose image, and then instead of the auto family, we're going to go under adjustment levels. So Command L is the shortcut that will bring up the levels dialog box. And here it is. What we're looking at is a histogram. And histograms measure black to white luminosity. So if this image were turned into a black and white image, if that helps you think about it, what pixels are pure black, and then a variety of shades of darker gray, mid gray, lighter gray, white, all the way to pure white. So we are looking at this, a luminosity value from 0 up to 255 on the white side. So this is telling us that none of the pixels in this image are pure black because there's nothing here. This is just a measurement, and you can see that there are a whole lot of off-white pixels, pretty bright but not pure white. And each time it sees one in this, in the actual document, it makes a bar chart, and it just keeps adding to this bar. So we can tell that there's tons of off-white pixels. There's some medium gray pixels, and there's quite a few dark gray to almost black, but none that are pure black. So I want you to understand that the histogram is just showing you how many pixels are pure black, midtones, or white, and along the scale. There's not a right or a wrong, but we can tell where we have problems. So we know that there's no pure black here, and we don't have a pure white spike, which is actually good, because when you have a pure white spike over here, a lot of pixels that are pure white or 255, that means that there's no detail in them, and we can't do anything in Photoshop to fix that. They're completely blown out in photography terms. So we have some sliders right below here, and if we pull this slider, which is the black slider, and we start moving it over, notice what it's doing to your image. You should be getting a live preview. And basically, if I were to pull it to this midpoint and let go, which I'm not going to do, it would say that whatever is at this level of pixels, that should be our darkest gray point, or our darkest black point, and all of these extra pixels should be smushed to the right. So I can pull it a little bit to where this little, we call this the foothills of the mountains, where they start. And then the white slider, I could pull in a little bit also. Notice if I keep going too far, I'm really over brightening it and I'm losing detail. So I pull that in just a little bit. And then maybe I look at the mid-tone. Should it be brighter or darker? Okay, so there's some options within there. So you can visually improve this way. All right, if we ever are doing something we're not real happy with what we've done, if we hold down the Option button on our keyboard, which is Alt on a PC, the Cancel button turns into a Reset button. So we can click Reset and it goes back to where it was. So we don't really need to worry if we kind of screwed up there. So let's just take this and move our black in a little bit. Let's move our white in a little bit. And let's take this midpoint, and just based on what the book is saying, just so we're in the same place, we're going to take it to a 1.8 of brightness. Okay, the good thing about this is that we definitely still, the snow and the dog is whiter, but we still have detail. We didn't blow out all the detail in the snow. However, we've also kind of brightened up these black points, so we might want to tweak our black point a little bit more. That's too far, we've lost detail. You want to be able to see some detail around the eyes. If you get to the point where it's just a black blob, you know, you've really pushed it too far. So play with this a little bit to get some detail around the eye of the dog. And when we're happy, we're going to say, okay. And before we do that, I want you to look at our histogram right now. Do you notice how it's all, these bumps, if you will, are solid white. If we say okay, and we go look at our histogram again, image, adjustment, levels, we're now going to see this is kind of broken up. Basically, it took all of our existing pixels and it spread them out from what we consider black to what we consider white based on the settings we just did last time. So it took those pixels and it either smashed them in or stretched them out. So this was destructive behavior. This was a one-time done. If we hit save, this file named Cali JPEG has been altered and we can never go back to that. And we don't want to do that. So we're going to hit cancel. And I'm actually going to close this without saving. I don't want to save that. And we're going to switch to a different image to show you how we can do this in a non-destructive way. The changes that we made to Cali by moving the black and white point were good, but the way we did it was the problem. So we are going to look at a better way of doing this, which is non-destructive editing. So we're going to open from our book files the image called Heron JPEG. All right, so this is our original image, and if you look at it, you might think, oh, it's low light, it's kind of a gray day, whatever. That may be true, but it's not a great image. There's really no contrast in here. So we are going to do a levels adjustment, but we're going to do it non-destructively. And to do that, we come over to our layers panel, and at the bottom, we have a bunch of icons. And the one that we want is the kind of the middle one. It's a circle with a black half and a white half. And I refer to this, it's the adjustment, new fill or adjustment layer icon, but I often refer to this as the yin and yang button because that's what it reminds me of. So click on that and we're going to see some of these same options that we just saw up in our menu up here under image. So we're going to apply a levels adjustment. That same histogram shows up right here in our panel, but notice in our layers, instead of actually working on the original document itself, like we did with the Cali image, we've added a new layer above it that's called an adjustment layer. And whatever we say within these adjustments will apply to all layers underneath it. There's only one right now, so it's no worry. So we're going to come up to our histogram, and here we can tell, oh boy, there is no black point. The black is right here, and the whites are way off. So first thing we're going to do is take the white point and we're going to slide it over until we get to about the foothills, like right where that data starts. Notice how much brighter this is. Then we're going to take the black slider and we're going to pull it over to where the data starts again, where the bar graph starts. You can move the midpoint, but often you don't have to. You can take a look at that and see if it might be good, but I'm just going to leave it at 1. It's fine. So when we apply this, it's going to take this white point and drag it all the way over. It's going to take this black point and drag it to the left, and then it's going to give that spiky look. It's going to stretch out the histogram, which is exactly what we want. So having done that, we can see that this is a layer, and we can turn it on or off if we decide we don't want it. And then let's just do a save as right now so we can see this in action. File, save as. Just name this another name. I'm going to do it on my computer. And I'm going to name it Brenda Heron. Notice it's a PSD. That's true. A Photoshop document is anything with layers. So that is the default. Whenever you have layers, the format will be a PSD with layers turned on. So we say OK to that, and we say OK to this pop-up. And you don't have to do this, leave yours open, but I just want to show you that if I do close this out, okay, it's still saving, I guess. Oh, I tried to work on my computer to move files off of it and speed it up a little bit, but apparently it wasn't enough. Okay, so it did close. So here is my PSD. I'm going to open that. Let's say 1 week has passed, 2 weeks have passed, whatever. I come back to this and I go, oh, that was a terrible editing job. Anytime you have an adjustment layer like this, all you have to do is come in and double click on, whoops, actually the icon. I was right the first time. I expected a pop-up window, but it actually is right here. You double click on the adjustment icon and it will load in this zone again. So if I think, you know what, that's too much, it should have been over here. And maybe my midpoint should have changed, whatever. If I decide that this is a better option, it saves that version. If I decide I never should have done any of this, I can pull these points back to 0 and 255 and change my midpoint to 1, and I'm back to normal. So this is non-destructive editing. I can open your file, I can see that you tried to fix the levels, and I can double click on this icon to see exactly how you did it. Typically the best practice is going to be to move the white slider right into where the data starts, or the foothills. So if this was more of a natural decline here, where if the white started over here, we would move our slider at least to the foothills, maybe in a little bit more. So on the black side, same thing goes. Right now you're relying on visual references as to what you actually see here. All right, another thing in here is that there is an auto button. So automatically correct levels, if we wanted to click on that, see what that does. Well, that's what it considers an auto correct. I am not impressed at all, which is why we use these options that we can tweak ourselves. All right. Let's see, some other things in this, some other options within this panel. We just used the sliders to work with manual adjustments, but there are some presets and you can look at those. So if your goal was to lighten the shadows, you might try this preset. If it were to increase contrast, you could maybe try that. I don't think any of these are going to be great with this image because it's such a low contrast image. So again, custom, move your sliders yourself, get your white point and your black point tweaked, maybe move your midpoint, and all good. The other thing that we have to look at real quickly here are some options at the bottom of this panel. So if we see this icon, this is going to allow us to basically clip this effect to just the one layer beneath it. Now in this case, we only have a background image, one layer, so there's no need. But imagine if you had a background layer and a car on a transparent background and a tree on a transparent background, and you were trying to fix the levels of just the tree, not the car and the background image. You might sometimes want to just clip these to the layer below. So this icon will do that for you. And when you click on it, it pushes it in a little bit and shows a down arrow here. That means that this adjustment is only clipped to the one layer below it. You can click on it again to take away that effect. Another option is, well, literally is to hold the Option key. And when you're hovering right between these two layers, when your cursor changes from a hand to the box and the down arrow, if you clip, that's the same thing. So if you are more comfortable using a keyboard shortcut and Option and clicking here, or using this button, it's going to do the same thing. The arrow and the eyeball lets you see the effect of your most recent change, so it's a visibility change. This is an undo, this is the visibility of the layer itself, and throwing away that adjustment layer, which of course you could also do down here by right-clicking or dragging it down to the trash in your layers stack. So that is how we can use levels across a whole image, manual levels.